Welcome back to another video, and today we got our Big Ten season preview. So we're going to be doing this similar to how we did the ACC and Big 12. Those are already up on the channel. Make sure you go check those out. But yeah, we're going to do similar to that. So we're just going to go through every team in the order from top to bottom. So we're going to start with the best team, work our way down to the bottom, predict every team's schedule, talk a little bit about each team's roster, how we're feeling, and then at the end we'll predict based off the top two teams who's going to win the conference. We're not going to go into the playoffs because I want to make a separate video for that. So make sure you go down there, subscribe, make sure you don't miss that. Like this video if you enjoyed. Turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss when we post that. I believe that video will come out Thursday. We're having 4 college football videos this week, so SEC tomorrow, playoff prediction Thursday, and then my top 25 on Friday. Links in the description. Make sure you check those out. The X, follow that. Twitch, TikTok, content coming soon there. And then Discord, make sure you go down there and join that. But with all that being said, apologize for the long intro. But we're going to get right into the Big Ten. So, yes, it's an 18-team conference now with the conference expansion, bringing a bunch of Pac-12 teams. And my number one team that I think will finish first in the Big Ten in the regular season is actually the Oregon Ducks. And I know this is probably surprising to some people because I am an Ohio State fan. But I do think Oregon finishes first in the Big Ten in the regular season. And ultimately, I think it comes down to Dillon Gabriel's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. They also have an insane wide receiver duo, Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart. One of the best wide receiver rooms in the country, along with probably the best tackle duo in the country with Josh Connolly and then Cornelius. Jordan James at running back is a beast. They got a bunch of edge rushers. Terrence Ferguson at tight end. I mean, their team is. I mean, Jeffrey Bassa, Jordan Birch on defense. They also got Jabbar Muhammad, very good corner. They're a very loaded team, secondary wise, linebacker wise, defensive line, offensive line. I just think they're maybe not the most complete team in this conference, but probably the most deep team in this conference. I think they're built to win in this conference. They have very good trench play. And quarterback-wise, like I said, Dillon Gabriel's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Probably top 5 if we're being honest. But, so let's get into the schedule. So starting off home against Idaho. I don't think they'll have any troubles with winning that. They definitely win home against Boise State. At Oregon State could be a little bit of a sneaky game, but Oregon State lost a lot of their talent. It is the Civil War. It's weird that it's week 3 now, but I mean it's on the road, but Oregon's going to win. Going into the bye, coming out of the bye when they start conference play, they got a nice gimme game to start here at UCLA. I'll take Oregon. Home against Michigan State should be Oregon. This game is setting up to be the game of the year. It's a night game. In Autzen Stadium, home against the Buckeyes. This is 2 teams that I don't want to spoil anything for my top 25, but I believe in the AP poll, this is the right now 2nd and 3rd ranked team. I don't remember where they put Oregon. I think they put them at 3. So yeah, this is just going to be a phenomenal game. Arguably the game of the year. I would probably say it is the game of the year. Ultimately, what it comes down to, I think these teams match up very well. In my opinion, Oregon has the better offensive line here. I think their offensive line can actually match up pretty well with Ohio State's D-line. Offensively, I think if it does get into a high-scoring game, I don't think it will because Ohio State's defense is probably better than Oregon's overall. But I think in the trenches, Oregon has them beat by a considerable amount there. I feel like they can hold the pass rush off for the Buckeyes a little bit because they have a very solid old line. And when it comes down to it, who do I trust more, Dillon Gabriel or Will Howard? I do think Dillon Gabriel. They also have it at home. I'm going to take Oregon. It pains me to say this because I don't want to see Ohio State lose. They are my favorite team, but I do think Oregon beats them. I think they win at Purdue. I think they win home against Illinois. I really did consider this at Michigan as a loss. It's on the road in the Big House. One of the toughest places to play, but what it came down to again, who do I trust more down the stretch? If you need a drive, Dillon Gabriel or Alex Orji, I'm taking Dillon Gabriel. So I didn't think Oregon wins that one. I think they win at home against Maryland. I think they win at Wisconsin. Could be a little bit of a tough game here. closing out the season, but I do think they win. And I think they win home against Washington. They get a bye before the big rivalry game. I do think they win. So I think they finish 12-0, 9-0 in conference, and a very good season. But the team that I think they will face in the Big Ten championship is going to be Ohio State. I don't think this is really any surprise. Ohio State's one of those teams. Everybody's taking them to win the Big Ten. People are taking them to win the national championship, and I think for good reason. I mean, they have the best running back room in the country with Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. Those are probably 2 top 5 running backs in my opinion. They bring in Caleb Downs in the transfer portal, one of the best players in the country. A healthy Ibuka is an All-American level receiver, probably top 5 in the country. They bring back Jack Sawyer. Tyleek Williams comes back on the D-line. They bring back JTT on the D-line still. Denzel Burt comes back. They bring in Will Howard at quarterback. I do think that is an upgrade from Kyle McCord, so good on them for that. Carnell Tate's stepping up. I think he'll be very solid. Jeremiah Smith, a freshman. He's the number 1 recruit for a reason. People are saying he's going to be an All-American, and I'm honestly convinced. When you see the clips from him, he has been absolutely ridiculous in training camp, so I'm all in on this Ohio State team. Now, I know I already have them losing, but I don't think they start out pretty easy non-conference schedule there. They'll start out 3-0. At Michigan State, could be a little bit of a tough game, but I do think they win. I think they win home against Iowa. If it was on the road, I'd probably still take Ohio State, but it would make it a little bit tougher just because of the trap game aspect to it. But I do think they lose at Oregon. But coming out of the bye, they will play a Nebraska team that I'm actually pretty high on. I do think they win. At Penn State, this could be a very tough game. I feel like matchup-wise, Penn State actually matches up very well with Ohio State this year just because of how good their D-line and their pass rush is compared to Ohio State's, to be desired offensive line. But I do think they win. It is on the road, which does scare me a little bit. But I do think Ohio State, just talent-wise, has the edge here against Penn State, and I think they can win. This will probably be a defensive battle. I mean, Penn State has 2 great running backs. Ohio State has 2 great running backs. Both have very good defenses. Penn State, this is a pretty tough game. I wouldn't be surprised if Ohio State lost this, but I do think they win. I think they beat Purdue. I think they win at Northwestern. I think they win against Indiana. Home against Michigan. I mean, if they lose to Penn State, as long as they beat Michigan this year, I mean, well, that's not true. I obviously want them to be undefeated. In my opinion, anything more than 1 loss this regular season is going to be a disappointment. Even if they do lose one, I'll be a little bit disappointed. I do think they're going to beat Michigan, though. They got it. They have to. This is the year they went all in the transfer portal, everything top to bottom. They're at home. Michigan's coming off the national championship, losing so many players. They have to win this. I think they do. So I got them going 11-1, 8-1 in conference, putting them at second in the Big Ten. But now look at our third place team is the Penn State Nittany Lions. Now, like I said, I do believe Penn State could honestly win this game. This is a coin flip game. Same with the Oregon game, Ohio State, Oregon. Those are 2 very tough games for me to pick. Ohio State's 2 toughest games are on the road this year, which does concern me a little bit. But I do have them going 11-1 still. But we're talking about Penn State now. So like I mentioned a little bit, Penn State's running backs, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. That's just a dynamic duo right there. They bring back Abdul Carter on the defensive line. Kevin Winston Jr. at safety. He is a name to watch out for. Tyler Warren at tight end. Drew Aller's going into his junior year. I think he'll be very solid this year. They bring in Julian Fleming from Ohio State to be their number 1 receiver. I do worry about this receiving room a little bit, but I don't think that's really their identity. Their identity is trench play, run game. I do believe Drew Aller will be better this year, so I'm actually pretty high on Penn State. I've seen some people saying they're going 12-0. Honestly, I could see it. Obviously, I didn't predict that because I have them losing here. But I could really see that. Now, they do have some tough games here. And starting off in week 1, this is not an easy game. West Virginia is a team I think I had going like 8-4 maybe. 9-3, 8-4, something like that in the Big 12 preview. I do think Penn State wins. But I do think this is a very close game, especially week 1 on the road. This is not an easy place to play at all. But I do think Penn State wins. I think they win these next 2 games without any problems. I think they win these next 4 games without any problems. I don't think Illinois or UCLA, especially not in Happy Valley, I don't think they're doing anything to Penn State. At USC, this is a real, I guess, true test. First real true test. I do think they win, though. I think they're just overall the better team. It is on the road in the Coliseum, but I think Penn State's better. At Wisconsin, could be a trap game. I could definitely see them losing this game. I did think about picking Wisconsin. Wisconsin's one of those teams. I think Luke Fickell is a great coach. I feel like Wisconsin should be one of those teams that win some games they shouldn't. But I think Penn State wins. I think coaching-wise, I trust James Franklin a little bit more. Not necessarily here, though. I have him losing. He just can't win big games. We know this. I do think Ohio State beats them. But finishing out the year, this is a pretty easy schedule. I think they beat Maryland in the rivalry game, finishing at 11-1, 8-1 in conference. And yeah, I mean, their schedule's not hard. They have really this 3-week stretch is their schedule. I mean, this week 1 game's pretty tough, if we're being honest. But this right here at USC, at Wisconsin, home against Ohio State, that's the bulk of their schedule right there. Really 4 just tough games. They do have 3 of the 4 on the road, so I guess that's something. But I think they go 11-1 and have a very, very good season. Yeah, that's what I think for the Nittany Lions. But now looking at our 4th place team, we do have the defending national champions, as much as it pains me to say it, the Michigan Wolverines. So yeah, they lose quite a bit of their team from last year, losing McCarthy. Roman Wilson's gone. Blake Corum. A bunch of the guys on the defense left. But they do bring back Will Johnson. Mason Graham is still there. Colson Loveland is still there, the best tight end in the nation. Best corner in the nation, probably, too. Along with Mason Graham, who's probably the best D-tackle. They also have Kenneth Grant at D-tackle. They probably have the best D-line in the country, if we're being honest. They bring back Donovan Edwards. So there are some guys here that impact players. Donovan Edwards is one of the best running backs in college football. Rod Morse, very, very good safety. Probably one of the best safeties in the country, too, if we're being honest. But they lose a lot of their team from last year. I do think they'll take a pretty solid step back here. I mean, you can see I already have them losing 2 games. I think they win week 1. Right here, home against Texas. I thought about this one for a long time. I mean, if it was at Texas, I think it would be Texas clearly. The fact that it's in the big house this early in the season, it does worry me. Some people think Texas will have a disappointing season this year. I'm not one of those people. I'm going to take Texas. Quinn Ewers is so much of a better quarterback than Alex Orji. Alex Orji is so unproven. He's thrown 1 career pass. I mean, that is just as little experience as you can get. I do think Michigan will be very good still, but they also lose Jim Harbaugh. So we'll see how they transition from that. But yeah, they lose so much talent. I mean, they bring back pretty good, pretty crucial pieces, but they're not really at, I guess, impact positions. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but I mean, they don't bring back like a quarterback or like, I don't know, and they don't bring back, yeah. So you get what I'm saying. I think they win home against Arkansas State. I do think they beat USC here. It is at home. I think they beat Minnesota at Washington. National title game rematch. I do think Michigan takes it again. I think they win at Illinois. The rivalry game here, I do think it will be closer than it was last year. I do think Michigan will still win, though. At Indiana should be a win, and home against Northwestern should be a win. So I have them going 9-3, 7-2 in conference. And I feel like this is pretty common for Michigan. People are saying they're going to go 9-3, and honestly, they could win. I really do think they can win this Oregon game. I think they can win Texas against Texas too. Really, it just comes down to how good is Alex Orji. I mean, that's the reality of it. Our next team we're going to look at is the Iowa Hawkeyes. So a little bit of a boring team. There's not much here to talk about offensively for Iowa. Cade McNamara is still there. He's still, I don't even know how long he's been in college, but he's been in there for a while. Jay Higgins at linebacker and Sebastian Castro at safety are some names to know. Nick Jackson at outside linebacker. Xavier Nwonka at strong safety. Yeah, their defense is legit. Offensive line-wise, they're very solid, but they don't have anything at receiver, nothing at running back, nothing at quarterback. It's going to be another one of those years for Iowa. Now, if their offense is just slightly better, I mean, they made the Big Ten championship last year. I do think their offense will be slightly better than they were last year, but nothing crazy at all. I think they win home against Illinois State. I do think they beat Iowa State in the rivalry game. They're at home here, so I think that's kind of why. Whoever was at home, I'd probably take. Iowa State's a team, though, I think I had going 8-4, so this is a pretty solid win here for Iowa. I think they beat Troy. I think they win at Minnesota. I don't see PJ Fleck doing much here. They think they lose at Ohio State. There's just no way they win on the road here with the talent they're playing. I do think they beat Washington, though, at home. I think they lose at Michigan State. I think Michigan State will be a very good team this year. So I think Iowa drops that game, but I think they win home against Northwestern. I think they beat Wisconsin at home here. This is a very good game, but I think at home they have at the edge here. At UCLA, I think they win. I think they win at Maryland, and I do think they beat Nebraska as it's another team I'm pretty high on. This team could realistically go 11-1. I think that's probably their ceiling. Floor, they could probably lose this Wisconsin game. They could probably lose this. Their floor's probably 8-4. But 10-2 record, 7-2 in conference, that is very good if for Iowa, especially with the lack of offense they have on their team. So yeah, I wouldn't be disappointed at all if I was an Iowa fan. I mean, 10-2 in the Big Ten, they could be in the discussion for the playoffs. Our next team we're going to talk about is USC. Now, USC is a pretty big wild card for me because I honestly do not know what to expect. Miller Moss is the new guy in town at QB. Interesting. I don't really know much about him. But they bring back Zachariah Branch at receiver. They still have Bear Alexander at D tackle, John Humphrey at corner. Still very solid offensive line. The defense, I don't think it will be great. It was terrible last year for Caleb Williams. I don't think it will be great. I do think it will be better than it was last year, but I don't think they can turn this around quite in 1 year. And, Miller Moss, don't know how he's going to play. So I do think they lose at LSU. I think that's just a safe pick. On the road, I don't think week 1 they come out. I mean, it is Lincoln Riley. He's a very good coach, but I don't think they win that. But I do think they rebound with a win at Utah State. I think they lose in the big house at Michigan. But I think they beat Wisconsin. This is a game that they could definitely lose, but I think the fact that they're at home, I think they win. At Minnesota, I think they win. At Maryland, I think they win. I think they win home against Rutgers. Rutgers is a team I'm actually pretty high on. A lot of people are actually pretty high on Rutgers. I think USC beats them at home. I think they win at Washington. Another team I'm pretty high on, Nebraska. I think USC beats them at home. I think they beat UCLA on the road. I do think they lose, though, in this rivalry game against Notre Dame. So I'm going 8-4, 7-2 in conference. If I'm a USC fan, just because of the amount of talent they've lost in the past 2 years with Caleb Williams gone, Miller Moss is a huge question mark. So I can't really see them doing any better than this. This is probably their ceiling that I have predicted right now. But hey, 8-4, they'll get into a very solid bowl game. If I'm a USC fan, I'm not mad about that at all. Now looking at our next team, though, we're going to talk about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So yeah, this team is very interesting. They bring in Dylan how do you say his name? Dylan Raiola. He used to be committed to Georgia. He's the number 1 QB coming in this season out of high school. Yeah, he was committed to Georgia. He flipped to Nebraska. Matt Rule, I like what he's got going over there. Tommy Hill at corner is a guy to know. Isaac Gifford at safety. They have a pretty strong secondary. Jamal Banks at receiver. They got some names. They got some talent. Now, ultimately, I do think it comes down to the QB play here. How good is Raiola going to be? And yeah, that's pretty much the big question here because honestly, even if he's not the best, I do think just because of how easy the schedule is, I think they win at least 6 games. So I think they will go bowling. They haven't gone bowling in a long time, but I do think they go bowling no matter what. Ceiling wise, though, realistically, they could beat this. They could beat USC. They could probably beat Iowa. They could probably go 11-1. Honestly, ceiling. Floor though, I mean, they could lose this game. They could lose this game. They could lose this game. Their floor is, like I said, probably 6-6. So a wide range of outcomes here. But looking at the schedule, I think they beat UTEP. I think they win home against Colorado in a rivalry game. I do think they win. I think they beat Northern Iowa. I think they beat Illinois. I think they win at Purdue. I think they win home against Rutgers. This is a tough game. I think they win, though. I think they win at Indiana. Another pretty sneaky tough game. Could be a trap game. I could see them losing that. But I don't think so just because of coming out of the bye. I think they will be prepared for this Indiana team. Home against UCLA. That's going to be a win. And then this game could go either way. I'm actually going to go with Nebraska, though. I think Nebraska wins it, putting them at 9-3, 6-3 in conference. And yeah, if I'm a Nebraska fan, I'm thrilled about this. They're gonna make a pretty solid bowl game with this record. And yeah, I think ultimately it does just come down to Raiola and how good he really is. And I do think he is going to be a very good team. So that's my prediction for Nebraska. But now looking at our next team, we do have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Now this may be a surprise to some people, but I think they actually are going to have a very good season this season. Kyle Mountain guy at running back. He is a very good running back. One of the best in the Big Ten, honestly. Mohamed Tour. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's an outside linebacker. Aaron Lewis is a left end. So they got some edge rushers. They have some talent on the offensive line. And yeah, I think this Rutgers team will be very solid. Now, I'm interested to see about the QB play because they're very young in the quarterback room. So I do want to see what happens there. But I think this team will have a very good season. I think they win these first 2 games. I do think they lose at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's going to be a very good team. It's hard to win there anyways. I do think they beat Washington at home. I think they lose at Nebraska, but then I also think they lose home against Wisconsin. I just think coaching-wise they're outmatched a little bit here. But I think they respond with a win against UCLA at home. They lose at USC. Going into the bye, though, come out of the bye, I think they beat Minnesota. I think they lose at Maryland. But I think they finish the regular season out with 2 wins here. I have them going 7-5, 5-4 in conference. If I'm a Scarlet Knights fan, I'm very happy about this season. This is, 7-5. I saw somebody predict them going 10-2 in the regular season. I think that's a little high. I think their ceiling's probably 9-3, floor probably 5-7, 6-6. But yeah, I think they will have a very solid season. But now looking at our next team, we do have the Michigan State Spartans. Now, this is an interesting team to talk about because they bring in, what's their coach's name? They brought in Oregon State's coach. I forget his name. I'm blanking on his name, but they also bring in Oregon State's backup quarterback in Aiden Childs. From what we saw at Oregon State, backing up DJU, I think he will be a very good quarterback. He looks very good at Oregon State. Jonathan Smith is the coach name there. It came to me. I think he brings in a very good coaching staff. A lot of guys from Oregon State. And I really do like this team. Tanner Miller at center is one of the best centers in the country. Jack Velling and Nate Carter at tight end. and running back respectively. Uh, yeah, I think this team will have a very, very good season under Jonathan Smith. I think coaching-wise, I think they probably have one of the best coaching staffs in this conference. Maybe the best. Probably not the best, but one of the best for sure. But looking at their schedule, I think they start off the season very solid, going 4-0, beating Maryland on the road. I don't know why that is this. I guess this is a conference game. That's weird that they have it week 2. But yeah, I do think they win that game. I think they lose at Boston College. I think they win at Boston College. I think they beat Prairie View pretty easily. Don't think there's any chance they win these 2 games, though. This is a brutal stretch. Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa, and Michigan. I have them beating Iowa because I don't think they lose all 4 of these. I think they're a very talented team. I don't think they are going to be terrible this season. So I do have them beating Iowa coming out of the bye, but this is a brutal stretch. I wouldn't be surprised if they lost all 4 of these games. Coming out of the stretch, though, I think they beat Indiana. I think they lose at Illinois coming out of the bye. But I do think they beat Purdue to finish the season 7-5, 4-5 in conference. And yeah, very solid season here for the Spartans. But looking at our next team now, I know some of you, a lot of people are going to get mad at me for this because they're going to be thinking, oh, where's Wisconsin at? Where's Wisconsin at? So I have them, what do I have them at? Finishing 10th, I guess. Wow, that's pretty low, honestly. But you look at the schedule, man, and I got a lot of hate for the Georgia Tech prediction. I had them going 3-9 in the ACC. People are saying 5-team win at minimum. But, like, you got to take into account, I know the rosters are solid. They're not anything crazy, but you got to look at the schedules, man. Look at this schedule for Wisconsin. I mean, they schedule Alabama in the non-conference. They got to go at USC, at Iowa, at Nebraska. None of those are easy games. Along with the fact they play Penn State and Oregon. And at Rutgers, that's not an easy game. They could lose that game too. I think floor-wise, their floor is 5-7. They could lose all these tough games. I don't think they will, just because I think Luke Fickell isn't gonna be 5-7. Not with this team. I think Tyler Van Dyke is an upgrade from Tanner Mordecai last year. Ricardo Hallman at corner is very good. Hunter Wohler at strong safety. They have a very good tackle duo in Riley Malman and Jack Nelson. Will Pauling at receiver. They got a lot of talent on this team. And it is hard for me. I already have them at 1-5, so let's go through the schedule real quick. So I think they win these first 2 games, no problem. Unfortunately, I don't think they beat Alabama. It is at home, but there's just no way, right? I think Alabama wins. At USC, that could definitely be a win. Do I change that? I don't want to change my prediction. Maybe I do. Maybe I usually don't do this, but I think I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna have Wisconsin. Yeah, I'm gonna have Wisconsin beat at USC. They're coming out of the bye. Like I said, I don't think they lose all 7 of these hard games. I think they gotta win at least one. But I have them beating USC. I think they win home against Purdue. I think they win at Rutgers. I think they win at Northwestern. This stretch, though, is just absurd. Penn State, I don't think they win. At Iowa, if it was at home, I'd pick Wisconsin, but I don't think they win on the road. Oregon, they're not beating. Sorry. At Nebraska, same thing here. If they were at home, I'd probably pick them. But I think they finish out with a win against Minnesota in the rivalry game. Going 7-5, 5-4 in conference. Not a bad season at all. Yeah, I did have them going 6-6, 4-5 in conference, but I think they're a little better than 6-6, so I will have them beating. I'll switch the USC game here. And also, USC 7-5 makes a little bit more sense to me also. So I'll do a little audible there. Usually don't do that. But our next team we're going to be looking at is the Fighting Illini. And looking at this team, this is an interesting team because they're kind of polar. I don't want to say polarizing, but some people are having them way down at the bottom of their Big Ten predictions. I don't think they're going to be that bad. Um, I think they have enough talent here to win to win some of these games. Now I think they'll beat Eastern Illinois. I don't think they beat Kansas. It is at home, but Kansas I think is a very good team. I think they win home against Central Michigan, at Nebraska, at Penn State. Those are going to be 2 losses, unfortunately. But I do think coming out of the bye, they win home against Purdue. Another tough 2-game set here, Michigan, Oregon. Don't think they're good enough to beat those teams, but I think they win home against Minnesota. I think they coming out of the bye, they beat Michigan State at home. At Rutgers, I think is going to be a loss, and then at Northwestern, unfortunately, I do think is going to be a loss. Northwestern's a solid team. They actually didn't play horrible last year. They were not bad. Weren't they? Am I making this up, or weren't they like? Did they make a bowl game, or am I just completely wrong? Because for some reason in my head, they made a bowl game. Yeah, they were 8-5. So yeah, they finished on a 4-game win streak. So I think Northwestern's trending in the right direction now. Luke Altmaier at QB. Didn't he play? No, never mind. I'm thinking of somebody else. But yeah, I think he'll be solid for Illinois. I think he'll do his job just fine. I don't think they have the talent really to make much noise in this conference, but I do think they'll win most of the games. I don't think they're gonna get upset. But I don't think they'll be pulling off any crazy upsets. Now let's look at our next team. It is Purdue. I think they win home against Indiana State. They're not going to beat Notre Dame. I do think they beat Oregon State on the road. I know this could be an Oregon State win, but I do think Purdue wins this. Home against Nebraska, I think it's going to be a loss. At Wisconsin, at Illinois. If this was flipped and Purdue is at home, I'd take them, but they're not. Oregon's gonna absolutely demolish Purdue. I do think they'll beat Northwestern, but at Ohio State, not at home against Penn State and at Michigan State. Unfortunately, those are all going to be losses for me, but I do think they beat Indiana on the road. So I feel like they always win the rivalry game, and Indiana's a team that I think will actually be pretty solid this year. I don't think they're going to be bottom of the Big Ten bad. But yeah, I think Purdue. I feel like they always win the rivalry game. I don't know. So that's what I'm gonna have for Purdue. 4-8, 2-7 in conference. Now let's look at Minnesota. And BJ Fleck's always gonna be a guy who's fighting for a bowl game. And if they do make the bowl game, he's gonna win it. Now you can kind of already see it spoiled here, but I do have him missing a bowl game, unfortunately. But I do think they win week 1. Home against North Carolina. This could go either way. I do think Minnesota, just coaching-wise, I think they have the edge. Talent-wise, maybe not so, but I do think week 1 they get it done at home. I think they win these first 3 games, starting out 3-0, but I think they do drop the next 3. Iowa, Michigan, USC, all very solid teams that I think are better than Minnesota. I think they'll win at UCLA. I think they beat Maryland, but at Illinois, at Rutgers, not going to be wins for me. And then Penn State and at Washington. Unfortunately, I don't think they make a bowl game. But I have them starting out the season 5-3, so not bad at all. But this is a pretty tough schedule. I mean, North Carolina in the non-conference, Penn State, Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin on the road, USC, Illinois, and Rutgers on the road. Pretty tough schedule. I think best case scenario, they go 7-5. Worst case scenario, probably 4-8, honestly. But they will be fighting for a bowl game. They always are with PJ Fleck. Indiana's an interesting team. A lot of people are switching their views on them. They actually have some talent this year. Donovan McCulley at receiver is a pretty good player, along with Elijah Scarlet. I think that's how you say his name. He's also a receiver there. Curtis Rourke is their new QB. I know he came from somewhere, but I'm blanking on where he transferred from. But he is there. D'Angelo Pons at corner. He's a pretty solid corner, actually. They have some talented players here. So let's look at the schedule. I think they beat FIU, week 1. I think they beat Western Illinois. I think UCLA beats them. This is this is an early conference game. Traveling this far early in the season, I don't think Indiana wins this one, unfortunately. But I think they win home against Charlotte. I think they beat Maryland at home. At Northwestern, that's going to be a loss. Nebraska at home. Don't think they're winning that, but I do think they beat Washington. Washington defending national runner-up. But unfortunately, I do think they dropped the last 4 games. So similar to Minnesota, I am starting 5-3, finishing 5-7 though, missing a bowl game. Unfortunate, but I think this is a step up from what we've seen from Indiana in the past. Now let's look at Maryland. And a lot of people are gonna not be too happy about this. I feel like, actually no, there's a team coming up that I think people will get pretty upset about. Maryland, I don't think anyone really expects them to be all that great. They lose to his little brother. He set all sorts of Maryland records now. At QB, they have Billy Edwards Jr., Ruben Hippolyte at linebacker. He's a pretty good player. Roman Hemby at running back. Ty Felton at receiver. Jalen Husky at corner. Jordan Phillips at D-tackle. They're an alright team, but nothing jumping out of the pages here for me. So I think they win home against UConn. I don't think they beat Michigan State here, but I think they win these next 2 games against the FCS teams, and then at Virginia, which I don't think Virginia will be anything special. At Indiana, I think it's going to be a loss. I do think they beat Northwestern at home. If it was the other way around, I'd pick Northwestern probably. But this stretch here, I don't think they lose all 6 of these last games, so I have them beating Rutgers, but this isn't an easy stretch whatsoever. I have them going 5-7, 2-7 in conference. So that's what I have for Maryland. Now looking at our next team, this is one that I feel like people might get upset about just because of the fact that they were in the national title game last year. And I'm not going to deny that. I know they were there, but I'm telling you right now, they're going to take an even bigger step back than Michigan will. They lose even more players than Michigan lost. I mean, Washington, that last year was their year. Penix was there, Heisman caliber QB. Rome Odunze. I mean, they had so many guys on defense there. Receiver-wise, they were just stacked. Running back too. I mean, they had a very good. I mean, last year was their season. There's no denying that. They're gonna take a step back this year. They also lose their head coach, Kalen DeBoer, is off to Alabama. I think they'll have a pretty solid secondary. Will Rogers at QB, I think, will be solid. But like I said, they lose so much. It's hard for me to get on board with this team making a bowl game. I mean, their ceiling is probably 7-5. They could win, maybe, probably 7-5. I don't think they beat Rutgers. They could win home against USC. They could beat at Indiana. So their ceiling's probably 7-5. I think this is a very easy first 4 games. I think they win all 4 of these. I do think they win home against UCLA as well. But at Rutgers, that's tough. Michigan and at Iowa, that's very tough. Going into the bye, then coming out of the bye, they could win this at Indiana, but I do think Indiana will be very improved from last season. USC, this is a coin flip. I could see Washington winning. I got USC, though. At Penn State, I don't think they're winning that. And then at Oregon, there's just no way, right? So I'm going 5-7. Unfortunately, they won't be bowling after coming off the national title game and a loss to Michigan last season. Our next team, though, is Northwestern. And I was giving them praise because they were very well improved last season. Unfortunately, though, I do have them taking a step back again. I mean, it's just hey, props to them for turning around their season like they did last year, but this isn't an easy schedule. If we're being honest, I mean, it just isn't. So I already have 9 of these games. I think they beat Miami, Ohio. I don't think they beat Duke. I think Duke is just a little bit better, more talented. And then Eastern Illinois, I do think Northwestern wins, but I don't think. I think they win home against Indiana. They could beat Maryland, maybe. They could beat Purdue, maybe. Ceiling's probably 6-6 here. Um, I could see them going 6-6. You could definitely make the argument here. I'm not gonna call you crazy if you say that. Honestly, they could maybe go 7-5. They could beat Duke at home. Could see it, but yeah, no. I'm gonna say 4-8. Unfortunately, I feel like people aren't gonna like that too much. But hey, uh, you gotta live with some of these predictions. Somebody's got to be at the bottom. I always say that, and the team we have at the bottom is UCLA. Um, they don't have Dante Moore. He transferred to Oregon, which is weird. I don't know why I'd want to go over there to be a backup. Um, Ethan Garbers is the QB now. I really don't know much about the guy. They got J. Michael Sturdivant at receiver, and Devin Kirkwood at corner. T.J. Harden at running back. Besides that, there's not much to talk about here on this team. I don't think they'll be good. I think they probably will be at the bottom of the Big Ten. This non-conference schedule is not easy at all. At Hawaii, I think they'll win. I think they beat Indiana, but at LSU, I mean, there's no way they're winning that. This schedule is brutal. This three-game stretch at LSU, home against Oregon, at Penn State, that is ridiculous. They could beat Minnesota at home. I don't think they do just because coaching-wise, they don't have Chip Kelly anymore. At Rutgers, at Nebraska, home against Iowa, I think those are all three losses, unfortunately. At Washington and USC, I don't think there's any chance they win those games. I think they'll win against Fresno State. Their ceiling here is probably 4-8. I think they could beat Minnesota. But I have them going 3-9, 1-8 in conference, and I do think they will be the last place team, unfortunately. But now looking at the championship game, we got the Oregon Ducks taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes in a rematch from the Week 7 game. And yeah, this would be a beautiful game to see a second time. Like I said, I think this probably will be the game of the year here. Or Ohio State at Oregon. It's going to be a night game, that is confirmed, which is amazing. I was worried they were going to make it a noon game. So that's great. With all that being said, though, this game is going to be in Indianapolis. So there's going to be a lot more Ohio State fans there than there is Oregon fans. It is going to be a neutral site. So it's not going to be 100% a home game. But it definitely will be more Ohio State fans than Oregon. When looking at it, I feel like coaching-wise, it's Ohio State has the edge slightly. QB-wise, I'll give it to Oregon. But offensively in general, probably it's close, 50-50. Defensively, though, I think Ohio State does have the edge. Now, trench play-wise, I'm going to give it to Oregon. That's why these two teams are very evenly matched. In my opinion, two of the top three teams in the country. I'll say that right now. So, yeah, this is a coin flip game once again. But I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's very hard to beat a good team, a team on the same level as you twice. Especially with this not... Oregon had it at home last time. This time it will be more of a home game for Ohio State than it will be for Oregon. I do think Ohio State wins the rematch and they win the Big Ten. I mean, Ryan Day's under so much pressure. They bring in Chip Kelly. He's going to change up their offense a lot. Jim Knowles. We know what he's going to do on defense. They're going to probably have the best defense in the country this season, or at least top three. At least top three. I'm going Ohio State as the Big Ten champion. I think they win. I think they go 12-1 and win the Big Ten. I think Oregon they make Oregon. I think they beat Oregon. Oregon falls to 12-1 with no Big Ten championship, but they will be in the playoffs. Even if they win or lose. Same with Ohio State, probably. I mean, if Ohio State's 11-2, even with no conference championship, they're going to get in. Um, so yeah, I think Ohio State is your 2024 Big Ten champion. But let me know what you think in the comments. Drop your predictions, hot takes, anything you disagree with, agree with me on. Like I said, we got 4 videos coming this week. SEC previews coming tomorrow. And then our 12-team playoff prediction, who I think is going to be in there based on my predictions, and who I think will win. And then on Friday, we'll have the top 25 video. Very exciting stuff here. After this week, we're going to start NFL stuff. May or may not have a new guest on to do that with me, so we'll see about that. MLB videos still coming along the way. And we also do college basketball and NBA, so if you're interested in any of that, go down there, subscribe, turn on the notifications to make sure you don't miss when we upload, and like the vid if you enjoyed. Links in the description, X, follow that, Twitch, TikTok, Discord, join that. That's all in the description. Popping up right now, you'll see the ACC and Big 12 previews. Make sure you check those out. With all that being said, though, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with the SEC season preview.